What made you realize your Uber driver wasn't creepy, just incredibly caring? I thought my regular driver was stalking me because he knew too much about my life, but discovered he'd been secretly helping all his passengers through their personal struggles. My Uber driver, Kevin, had been picking me up regularly for 8 months. Same route to work, same time. Always available when I needed rides to appointments or the airport. Always friendly and professional, but something felt off about how much he remembered about my life. Never seemed to forget details I'd mentioned weeks earlier during casual conversation. At first, I thought he was just good at customer service. Kevin would ask about my job interviews, remember my doctor appointments, and inquire about my sick cat by name. Always had my favorite radio station ready when I got in the car. Never played music I'd mentioned disliking. Somehow remembered I preferred silence during early morning rides. But the details he remembered became unsettling. He'd ask about specific projects at work, remember names of coworkers I'd mentioned once, and even knew when I'd had bad days without me saying anything. The red flag moment came when Kevin showed up with tissues and water during a ride when I was crying about my breakup. I'd never told him about relationship problems, but he seemed to know exactly what I needed. I decided to test whether he was somehow monitoring my social media or personal information. I started paying attention to how Kevin interacted with other passengers. During shared rides, I noticed he treated everyone with the same personalized attention. He'd remember one woman's coffee order, ask a college student about specific exams, check on an elderly man's physical therapy progress. But it got weirder. Kevin somehow always had what people needed. During one shared ride, a passenger mentioned feeling dizzy, and Kevin immediately produced crackers and orange juice from his console. Another time, someone's phone died, and Kevin had the exact charger they needed already plugged in. I started documenting these incidents, convinced Kevin was either extremely lucky or somehow preparing for his passengers' needs in advance. The truth came out during a ride to the airport when Kevin's phone kept buzzing with texts he kept glancing at worriedly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "One of my regulars is having a panic attack at her office building. I'm trying to coordinate getting her friend there to help." That struck me as an odd level of involvement for a driver. "You help passengers with personal problems?" Kevin looked embarrassed. "I probably shouldn't, but when you drive the same people every day, you start caring about their lives." He explained that he'd been keeping detailed notes about his regular passengers, not for creepy reasons, but to provide better emotional support during their commutes. "You mentioned being stressed about job interviews, so I started carrying water and mints. Sarah always gets car sick during anxiety episodes, so I keep motion sickness bags. Mr. Peterson is diabetic and sometimes forgets snacks." Kevin showed me a notebook filled with information about dozens of regular passengers. Not invasive details, but practical notes about preferences, ongoing challenges, and small ways he could help. "Why do you go to all this trouble? People spend a lot of time in my car during vulnerable moments. They're stressed about work, dealing with family problems, going through breakups. If I can make their day a little better, why wouldn't I?" Turns out Kevin had been connecting passengers who might help each other. He'd introduced job seekers to people in relevant industries, helped elderly passengers find companions their age, even facilitated study groups among college students. The tissues during my breakup weren't coincidental. Kevin had noticed I'd been quiet and sad for weeks, so he prepared for the possibility that I might need emotional support. "I've been driving for 3 years. You learn to read people and anticipate what they need." Kevin's creepy attention to detail was actually extraordinary empathy and care for his passengers' well-being. I nominated Kevin for a Driver Excellence Award, which led to a news story about his compassionate service. He now trains other drivers on building meaningful connections with regular passengers. Kevin still drives me regularly, and I've become part of his informal passenger support network. We help each other through life's challenges, all because one driver decided his job was about more than transportation.